Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew here, back for our build review show. It is Friday, December 6th of 2024. And on this show, we bring users builds up live on stream and giving them personalized feedback and advice about things that I think that they should do differently in their builds to help them build stronger lineups, submit stronger lineups into their contests, and hopefully increase their post-contest sim ROI. So we do this show typically Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to get signed up for a future show, all you need to do is drop your DK username in the Office Hours channel. Let me know what sport and slate you want me to review, and I will add you to the list for a future show. But with that said, we have 7 people signed up today. We have plenty to talk about. So let's get Saber Sim up here, and then let's get our first person up on the screen. So going to be a very, very busy afternoon here, which is great, helping people to get better. So love that. But first person up is going to be easy. We're going to be looking at Thursday Night Football Showdown from yesterday. So let me get that up on the screen here. Let's go back to yesterday, NFL, Green Bay, Detroit. Let's move this around. All right. So we're in this slate. Let's go over to contest tab. So it looks like they're just maxing the $20 150 max. I mean, this is personal choice. You know, if you are, at a point with your bankroll and your level where, you could do this, like, hey, more power to you. If you can, get in some of these smaller ones, like, hey, you could get in the flea flicker, and I think they have like a $9, don't they? Yeah, I mean, there's like 2 flea flickers, right? You can get in like some of these, for twice the amount of, for like half the price, you get double the entries, lower price at first. Totally your call, but not going to speak too much here on contest selection. Yeah, Easy said not on the profit plan. It's cool, man. That's just where we start though. All right, so let's get into this contest results here. So we're going to look at people who 150 maxed. We're going to sort by sim ROI. And what do we see? So easy is 28% sim ROI, which is good. Highest sim ROIs, I mean, there are some outliers here. I would say if you're in like the 35% plus range, you're like pretty good, right? I'm always kind of trying to figure out like where people end up if they're like top 15 on the list or things like that, right? So I would say that this is a good set of lineups to start with, right? 28% is not too far from the top here, probably like 20 to 25 users down. Let's look at some of these characteristics and see what some of the differences are here. So what do we see? 48.2 salary, leaving a lot of salary on the table. It looks like a lot of the other players on this toward the top did too, right? Like top is like 4,800, 48.3. We see a 49.3, see 48.5, 48.7, 4,800. So, nothing out of sorts here with average salary and leaving that on the table. We see 7 average dupes, 14 uniques, 73 under 5, and 87.6 sim average score. So looks like these are in line with a lot of the other users. So like, what would be some differences here, right? So like, for instance, Shady Advice, known SaberSim user, he gets to a slightly higher projected set of lineups at like a 1.3 points more, and then gets to slightly lower average dupes and like 8 more uniques. So, you could see like the small differences in what they do here in sim ROI, which tells me like, hey, you're not like really that far off at all. Like 28% is not a bad number. But it's interesting how like such small changes here, like a few more uniques, 2 less average dupes, a 1.5 more of a sim average score, like boosts you up like so high, right? So, you're so close to all these metrics. I think that, this is fine. Where I would probably spend some time if you're like trying to get better. But first thing, right, is to remember this. Showdown is super high variance format. what happens here, right? I mean, like, yeah, negative like 69% actual ROI. You see that like all the time, right? Especially like sim median profit too. Like almost everybody is negative here, right? Because your most likely outcome is losing money. That happens like over 50% of the time, since only in the top like 20%, whatever, cash here. So don't feel too bad about that, or like your actual ROI. But lineups look good. Where I would probably spend some time, right, is highlighting on your lineups, going over to leaderboard, or even, leaderboard. And I'm going to change this to expanded view. Is like spending a little bit of time here saying like, okay, what type of lineups did I have that actually did not grade out well, right? And then you can like scroll through here and like try and find some of the differences, right? It's like, okay, this is probably like even a decent example. Top lineup is 48.7 salary, 94.4 projection, positive 59% sim ROI, and 8 dupes. And then second lineup here, 49.7 salary, 95.5 projection, negative 17% sim ROI, 22 dupes. So like you use that extra 1,000 in salary, your projection goes up 1 point, but dupes go up like 14 dupes. It's obviously like too big of a trade-off, like for the additional projection you're getting, to assume this many duplicates. You could maybe chalk it up to salary, like, okay, hey, 49.7 salary, like kind of tough here. You have a positive 46.4. 87-point projected, one is 80, right? So like this 80-point projection is just way too low, right? So like this would be a good opportunity to either be like, hey, I'm going to use like a rule or like filter to get rid of like some of these lower dupe lineups so they don't sneak in here, because it is really hard to manage 150 lineups and like go through them one by one, with a fine tooth comb, right? So those are like some things I'd be thinking about, possibly like filtering out some of the lower projected line. I don't have a ton of good recommendations on like where to set, where a good baseline number comes from, which is why I like doing the filter way. But so many of your lineups are like in this 90 range, and then having that like 80 is just like probably something you can just like avoid, right? So I would consider that. But I think that this process of just combing through these and trying to figure out like, hey, what are the biggest differences between some of these lineups? And I think that you can learn things doing that and try and figure out some things that you might want to tweak, right? So a lot of this, and it's important for people to remember, you're never going to have all positive sim ROI lineups in 150 lineups. It doesn't matter who you are. It is just an incredibly hard thing to achieve. But you're good. The thing with the 80-point projected lineup is like one of those things, right? Like we see all of these, like, hey, I see some 87-point projected lineups positive. I see some 87-point projected lineups negative. It's like some of those are going to be hard to tell. Some of those are going to be, a coin flip. Like we have this 48-1 salary lineup, dupe 22 times. You could probably go through this and try and figure it out. But there is variance in how likely a lineup is like going to be duped. So you're mostly looking for like things that are like glaringly wrong that you can just chip off and hopefully raise the average of your sim ROIs across your set, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And Easy's like, yeah, I have to figure out how to trim the tail. Like, exactly, that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out. And you might just have to, scroll through here and like be starting. Looks like these lineups came from build 1. Let's jump into build 1. Okay, so what do we see here? So we see 42,000 min, so dropping the min, I think that's cool. 49.7 max, I think that's cool as well. Maybe even drop it further, right? I mean, based off like what we're seeing, could be like one possible thing. I don't want to recommend making too many changes based on, having good results in general, but could be something to consider, right? Maybe 49.5, right? Who knows? One rule, projection sum greater than 75. Okay, so it seems like he's already doing this, right? This is a little bit of what we talked about. You could possibly even go higher with this, right? Like based off what we've seen. Again, I don't have a good rule of thumb to do a rule. Like I don't know where a good number comes from. That's why I kind of stick to filtering after the build, like getting rid of the bottom like 10 to 20% of projected lineups. So that's where I'm most comfortable, but doesn't mean that's the right answer. Lineup filter, ROI, negative 20% or better. It's okay if you want to open up the band a little bit to include lineups or from including lineups that are only positive ROI. I know it can limit your set significantly if you use 0. So if you want to open it up a little bit, that's fine. I am an advocate for 0 ROI or better. So totally your choice there. Aside from that, what do we see here? Couple minimax exposure changes, nothing too significant. Montgomery, Jacobs, looks like just like managing risk. Amon-Ra, the only minimums I see are to Watson and Reed, and like basically getting those guys like closer to neutral here. But I don't see anything that's like overshooting at all at any point here. So a lot of risk management. So all seems good with minimax exposures. Okay, we see a lot of minimax exposures in the flex tab, which is a little interesting. Seems like they're just trying to be really, really close to the field for a lot of these players, right? Like you look at all these minimum exposures and there's a lot of them, but they're all really close to ownership, or they're all pushing the exposures of the players towards their ownership, right? So he's taking like a very flat approach, like trying to be very close to the field, take small leverage stands. That is okay. You don't need to be like super leveraged and like be all in on a few players or anything like that. So this is a fine approach. I don't have any problems with it. And the sim ROI agrees, right? Post-contest sims are saying, hey, this set of lineups is strong. Projection changes don't seem significant here. Very, very minor. I think those are fine. So yeah, I mean, look, we're studying a player who's maxing out, the Thursday Night Football flagship, right? Probably good player, probably has plenty of wins under their belt. These are things that you can learn from, right? For everybody else watching here, I think that this is a good set of lineups. I think they're doing a lot of the right things. Personally, I would do a couple things a little bit different, right? Like I'd probably use, 0 ROI rather than 20, but that's maybe just because I trust the tools like a little bit more, right? Or maybe they want to see a little bit more lineups. They don't want to see 500. They want to see 1,000, right? And the only way to do that is to open up the ROI band. Like, hey, that's okay, right? So all in all, I think this is a good set of lineups. I think that you can do some micro learning on a lineup by lineup basis by spending time analyzing your 150 set and learn a few things, like possibly using this aggregate projection sum rule, but increasing it, looking at like some salary things with some of your lineups and your duplication rate. So that's where I would spend some additional time. But all in all, really good, really strong set of lineups. And those are my thoughts. All right. Hope that was helpful. Easy said, the negative 20 is a showdown specific thing. Try to avoid some of the Saber user dupes. Appreciate all the insights. Yeah, man. Happy to help out. All right. What are we going to do here? So looks like we have 3 users signed up for Thursday Night Football Showdown. And then we have 4 users signed up for NBA. So I think I'm going to batch these where I don't really want to be bouncing back and forth between sports because sometimes it messes up my mind. So what we're going to do is we are going to do all of the Thursday Night Football persons together. And then we will do all of the NBA persons together. So let's go one at a time here. And where are we? All right. Next person up is going to be Kay Mahoney. We looked at his lineups on Monday, and he has asked us to relook at his lineups for Thursday Night Football, which is totally cool, right? So sounds like he made some adjustments and is wanting us to review what's going on there. All right. So one sec. Okay, Dunzo. Going out of order here, so making a couple quick notes. Let's get SaberSim up. All right, so we're in this build. Thursday Night Football again. Go over to the contest tab. All right, nice balance of single entry, 3 max contests here. A lot of good stuff. Let's select all. All right, so let's go and review. Man, let's try to do the showdown one. I'm a little worried about time to load here since it's so big. That was actually pretty fast. So pretty cool. Sam said, is this live? Why are we talking about Thursday Night Football? Yeah, this is live. So this is our build review show where I bring users builds up on stream and give them advice about past contests and things that they did, right? So we were reviewing lineups from previous contests, which is why we are talking about Thursday Night Football. All right. So got these results up, jumping over to users. Mahoney is music guy here, entered 150 lineups, sorting by sim ROI. So what do we see? So we see negative 7% sim ROI. No problem, Sam. And let's look at these lineups. So there's some trains here, some of these bigger ones. I'll typically just say, show average dupes that are less than like 140. That should get rid of the trains. So what do we see? So highest sim ROIs in this contest are somewhere in like the 10% plus range, right? So -7 is not like so far away from like 10% where it'd be like, hey, you're -7, but the highest sim ROIs are like 50% plus. That would be like really, really bad. But here, -7 is negative, right? But you're not that far away. So I think that some small tweaks here can help. What do we see, right? 49.2 salary. We see plenty of salaries in that range. I think this is the biggest thing, right? 50 average dupes. This is like glaring, like staring me right in the face, right? 50 average dupes. Sim average score of 90. What's most interesting to me is like we see somebody here, big stock 2001, 50 average dupe. So same exact number, but like only about 1 point average sim average score higher here. And then they don't have any unique lineups either. They have a few more under 5. So I think like this is a good example when I say, hey, you're really not that far away. Exactly what I mean, right? And so this person like 1 point projected higher, or you see somebody with a similar sim average score, maybe Calvin Dubs here, right? 90.8, which is a little bit closer to you. And what's the difference there, right? 37 average dupes and 16 lineups under 5, right? So you are just slightly under projected or a little bit too heavily duped, right? And both of these are solvable problems. So I think a couple more tweaks, a couple more iterations here, and we can get a little bit closer to being a little bit higher sim ROI. So these lineups came from build 2. Sam said he's thinking about signing up for SaberSim. What do you guys think? You guys think Sam should sign up? I think so. All right. 5-day free trial in the description of this video, by the way. Just throwing that out there. All right. Build 2 here. What do we see? 0 minimum salary, max 50K, no filters, 1 rule. My own geomean less than 25. Okay. Oh, okay. Mahoney said his lineups that he played were actually from build 1. He was messing around with some stuff post contest. So I was just going off of what was in the contest tab, like the source right here, and just reading this. So thank you for that note. Let's go back to build 1. All right. Lineups have loaded. What do we see here? So still min 0, max 50K, no filters, no rules, 1 lineup filter. Okay, with 2 things. Show lineups with geomean less than 23.5. Show lineups with projected score greater than 86.5. So this is good. Okay. Now, one thing with this, which I'm not 100% sure how you figured this out, but I just want to mention it. Doing them together makes it a little bit harder to know the impact of each one individually, right? So in this example, the geomean could be trashing, how many lineups do you have in trash? 2,500. The geomean effectively could be trashing 2,000 lineups. I think the projected score could be trashing 500, right? Or maybe you don't know, right? So all I'm going to say is, personally, I like to do them separately because then I can see the impact that each one has individually. So I'm not 100% sure how you figure this out. You might know a way to do it like different than me. That's all I'm going to say is make sure you know the effect that each is having. Hopefully they're having an equal effect. Okay. He said, I dumped the pool into a CSV and calculated percentile. So that's cutting top 20%. Jimmy and bottom. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to check this. It's always worth checking. So there's always more than one path to getting things done. So glad they were able to do that. But good note for everybody watching as well. Okay, what else do we see? Okay, my other question would probably be, did you use autofill or did you use direct fill? So that's a little bit harder for me to determine most of the time, but it looks usually, I just go off of whatever state the app was in when I joined it. So my assumption here is that you use direct fill. Let me know if you use direct or auto. Okay. He said he used auto. Okay, great. My next question. Oh, okay. Okay, so it looks like they sorted by prize pool, but then just grabbed the $15 because it was the biggest entry fee. It was like, you know what? This is like a big $15. I want to do this one first. Okay. Couple exposure adjustments. Okay. So here, I think this is actually a good example comparing this to Easy, who we just got done looking at. See, Easy's adjustments with minimax exposures were a little bit, I don't know, softer or more just kind of like pushing the builder closer to like neutral or like the direction he wanted to go. Wasn't being like hyper aggressive. Well, maybe he's not being here either. I don't know. Part of me is like a little bit confused because like I see this like 20% Christian Watson minimum exposure, but then I see that you like actually played only like 1% of him. So I was going to say that like, hey, 20% is like really aggressive compared to like his 4% ownership projection. But I see the 20% almond raw, and then I see the 30% entry exposure. So like that matches up a little bit more. And I was seeing like a lot of almond raw yesterday too. So it just seemed like somebody that Saber Sim was getting to. Okay, he said this build thing makes it wild. My exposures matched the strong stances from main exposures. Okay, I'm following. This part's still weird, but we'll just ignore it. Let's go over to flex. So no min or max in the flex. So just these like two adjustments, like nothing crazy here, right? So sort by projection. Okay. So part of me thinks we were talking about like, hey, the projection is just like so close to like some of these higher ROI sets. You shouldn't feel that bad. I think it's basically coming from the Amin-Ra minimum exposure. And the reason for that is that he's like 600 more salary, but like 2.5 more captain points below Josh Jacobs, right? So like you take away this minimum exposure, you probably get to like either somebody who is the same points like Jordan Love or Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you save salary with those guys, and you could probably get to like a little bit higher projected flex players. So what I would say is like when you're going to take these players and take stands on players who are a little bit lower value, right? If we're sorting by projection and we're looking at the value of them, and Amon-Ra is like the lowest value player above 20 points with the multiplier here. If you're gonna take a couple stands, I would say be a little bit more inclined to take some of the post-contest sim results with a grain of salt, where it's like, hey, I'm making the stand. I'm being a little bit more intentional. I'm probably going to sacrifice some projection to do so, but I'm okay with the result at the end of the day. So for me, it comes down to how convicted you are in this exposure adjustment. And if you're not, right, if you're not that convicted about it, maybe consider not doing it, right? Like, I don't know how much of him you would have got to naturally here, but he is still like 12% in the pool, which is like only one of 3 players over 10% here. We see Jacobs, Amon-Ra, and Watson. I don't know if Watson was like artificial with the minimum exposure or not, but I still think that you would have gotten to enough of him naturally here, right? So my opinion is that your contest sim results are actually not that bad, and you took a stand here, and the builder didn't agree, right? And that happens, especially if you're somebody who's like using custom projections, or you're like making a lot of minimax exposure changes. The more changes you make, the more inclined you should be to be like, hey, I'm probably going to be a little bit lower on the sim ROI list, and that's okay, right? It comes down to, are your changes right? Do you feel strongly about them? And then I would probably be like trying to be objective with myself and be like, hey, am I making good changes or am I making bad changes, right? And tracking those over multiple showdown slates, which I do, right? I do that all the time. I tell you guys I play like all the showdowns and always try and track my stuff. So those are my opinions here. I don't think you're doing anything bad. There's nothing I'm seeing that's like, oh yeah, this is like definitely hurting you. Some small differences, and I would be comfortable with your lineup set. So hopefully that gives you some things to chew on and get you ready for the next showdown slate. All right. Good stuff there. Mahoney said, thanks as always. You are welcome. Let's get our next user up Thursday night football. This will be our last Thursday night football person, which is going to be a Flower Farmer from Discord. Give me a second. All right, let's jump back to the showdown. Let me let this load. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to start in the contest tab, as always here. And what do we see? We see a pretty good balance, single entries, 3 maxes here. I think this is all, low stakes, all good contests to play. So happy with that. All right, I'm going to load this 150 max. And while it loads, I'm going to grab some water real quick. I'll be right back. All right. Contest loaded. Sweet. Jump over to users. All right, it's our guy Alex here. All right, so what we're going to do is filter for 150 maxers. So this is good, right? This is the same contest that Mahoney played. So we have somebody directly to kind of compare against. Now, what do we see? 48.2 average salary. 30 average dupes. Let's get rid of some of these trains. 1 unique, 905, 87.3 sim average score. Okay, so let's just go and compare Alex to Mahoney here, which was like -7-ish. Okay, so even here, right? Mahoney music guy, right? His sim average score was 90 compared to 87, but then 50 average dupes compared to 30, right? So Alex is sacrificing some projection to get to lower average dupes, but I don't think they're getting far enough, right? Where Alex would have to get is closer to somebody like Actuary here, where, hey, their sim average score is like 86.5, which is within a point of Alex's sim average score. But those metrics are 4 average dupes, 27 uniques, and then 101 under 5, right? So I say this to say, like, it is okay to play low projected sets, but if you're going to do that, you need to work harder to guarantee uniqueness in your set, right? Or low average dupes. Or you can play higher average dupes. Look at somebody like Cannibal 87 here, right? 105 average dupes, but 96 sim average scores. So just way higher on that sim average score side and balancing it out that way, right? Like there are multiple ways to get to these high sets. So let's go into the build. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about some of the decisions they made more than anything. All right. Loading up build 1. And what do we see? So they use autofill. We have a filter, ROI greater than 0. Seems good. 1 min unique. Sorted by prize pool. Okay, everything looks cool here. So the min and max salary is kind of interesting, right? Like 30,000 min, 49,000 max. Personally, I don't think you need to go so low with the min, right? Like the lower your minimum salary goes, typically the lower projected lineups you're allowing to be into your set. We've kind of seen like there is a little bit of a projection floor that you want to stay around. So I would personally be leaving maximum closer I think either Mahoney or Easy had it around like 42,000. I don't remember which one. I think that's like a fine number. You know, if you don't want to go 45,000, you want to lower it to like 42, something like that. I think that's a little bit better of a floor as opposed to 30,000. 49,000 max is a little bit aggressive, right? We saw Easy go like 49.7. I recommended 49.5 as like a possibility. 49,000 feels a little aggressive. Something you can do here, right, to get some ideas. Go to the contest tab, go and look at the flagship contest, and then go and look at the top sim ROIers and see what the highest salary lineup they're playing is, right? Like, hey, how high of salary lineups does Shady Advice allow? How high of salary lineups does Giant Squid allow? How high salary lineups does Uticow allow, right? Like, go and look at all these players and see what those what their decisions are, right? And you're going to see different things, but it'll give you some ideas about a good number to fall on for yourself. So some research like that could be helpful for determining a good max salary for you. 2 rules. Rule number 1 says use no more than 2 kickers or defensive players. So okay with 2, not okay with 3. I don't feel strongly about this one way or the other. Seems fine. Use no more than 1, and then it's picking like kind of like punt wide receivers from Detroit. Also seems fine. Seemed like only Tim Patrick got there, so kind of makes a little bit of sense to me. So I think those are fine. All right. So we see a lot of minimum exposures in the captain here. All of these very, very close to ownership. So again, you know, getting flat, this seems like a fine approach. I don't have a problem with this. I will say something similar to like what we saw before. I do think probably setting a lot of these does get you to lower projected lineups because the builder basically has to sacrifice other lineups to get to the ones that you are choosing here, right? So just remember that every time you make changes or go a different direction than the builder wants to go, you're probably sacrificing some amount of projected score, which could lead to lower sim ROI lineups. Okay, we see only 3 minimax exposures in the flex tab. I'm neutral on them. I don't have a lot of opinions. But what do I see, right? I'll tell you one thing I don't see. I don't see. Well, that's not true. It looks like they're trying to account for duplication simply through salary. My opinion here, from what I've seen, is this is either not enough or doing it this way solely is a bad idea. And the reason I don't know which one of the two that is, but the reason I say that is because it seems like they're still getting duplicated a lot, even though they're leaving 1,000 salary on the table. So by itself, it's not working, and they need to add some other component to help them. Could be geometric mean, could be, looking at cash constructions, could be some ownership. It could be a number of different ways they go there. If you want to use GeoMean, I would probably recommend that first, right? If you're looking for information on that, go to our help docs, go to tutorials. So I just dropped that video in the YouTube chat. That would probably be my first place to go. Second here, right? Not only is this not working for duplication, but I'm almost positive it's hurting the average projection of your lineup set. So I would probably abandon this idea or go higher and try and work in other forms of duplication protection, uh, simply based on what we're seeing, right? It's not to say that it wasn't a good hypothesis, it wasn't something good to try, but from trying it and reviewing the results, we're determining that like it alone is not a standalone way of doing that. Maybe just in DFS in 2024, right? Maybe it worked in 2023, but the field catches on and makes adjustments, and it's like not having the same effect that it used to. So those are my big takeaways here. I really hope that helps you. And let me know if you have any follow-up. All right. That concludes our football reviews here. And we are going to be jumping over to NBA. So our first user up is going to be Interrogator. And we're going to be reviewing Tuesday's NBA main slate. And then we have multiple users signed up for Thursday's NBA main slate. So let me get Interrogator up. All right, loading now. And let's get this up on the screen. All right. So we're going to go to the contest tab as always. Contest selection looks good here. Pretty happy with it. And let's go and pull up one of their contests. Minimax looks like a pretty good contest. Let's pull this up. And we're just waiting for these lineups to load. All right, jump over to users. Close these windows. All right, 150 lineups. So let's go 150 maxers. Sort by sim ROI. All right, so this is cool, right? Interrogator, top sim ROIer in this contest. What do we see here, right? High average salary. We see that they had, at least they had a positive actual ROI too. 3 average dupes, 59 uniques, 123 under 5, 279.8 sim average score. So interesting that, even on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 game NBA slate, that, a lot of these lineups are being duplicated, right? This leads me to believe like, hey, maybe you do need to account for duplication even on an 8 game NBA slate, right? Like this isn't something I had considered too much before, but we're seeing it here, right? Good news is like along with the dupes, their sim average score is like really high and they're still getting to really strong lineups, right? So I personally wouldn't do anything different just because your sim ROI is so high. But if you were struggling and you're noticing the average dupes, your average dupes, maybe you have like an 8 average dupe or something, right? Then I would start to actually account for this in my process, even on an 8 game classic slate. So we're not going to learn too much here because obviously they're top user and, there's not a ton else to look at. Notice that they do have a swap build open. That's great. They're late swapping their lineups. Also notice that build 1, their last lineup run was 5 minutes to lock, right? So they have a process that is lean enough to allow them to run the build at 5 minutes prior to lock and get their lineups in on time. So we've talked about having a lean process that you can use very quickly. Looks like they have that. So I think that's probably helping out their sim results too, because that allows them to account for news and get those lineups run really, really quickly. All right. 49.2 minimum. So brought that up ever so slightly. I think it's 49,000 by default. I think. So either way, minimum has been increased slightly here. 2 lineup filters, ROI greater than 0, projection boost. Those both look good. couple minimum exposures, Maxey, Brunson, just those two. No filter. So one thing I have to mention, right? When you are using minimax exposures, that is going to have a big impact on your single entry contest, right? So for instance, they have these two minimum exposures to Maxey and Brunson. Well, if I go and uncheck all their contests and then check. Oh, interesting. So there's a couple ways they could have done this. I don't know exactly how they could have done this. And I'm just getting this idea right now. You could do multiple autofills where maybe you autofill your single entries, click save, use unique rank, and then you uncheck those, and then you fill your other contests, set your minimax exposures, then click save again. That prevents you from having to run two different builds and allows you to do it all within one build, just piecing it out and doing your single entries first and then doing your minimax exposures. So it's just an idea I got right now off the top of my head, because I think that's maybe what they're doing. So they led me to believe that. So very, very possible they're doing that. Something I know a lot of people have a gripe with is doing the multiple builds for the single entries and multi entries. So maybe that's something you guys can implement going forward. But aside from that, I don't have a lot much else to talk about, which is generally a good thing. That means that they're doing a lot of things right, and I don't want them to get off track with I don't want to sidetrack anybody from taking good steps. So all in all, good lineups here. This is a very good process to review to take things away from. If you're looking for tips, if you're struggling, check out what Interrogator's doing and go from there. All right. We're going to be jumping over to Thursday's NBA main slate. And first person up there is going to be M. Dumbluski. And just getting him up on the screen. 1 second, almost done. Okay. I think I have them up. All right. Jumping over to the contest tab for Thursday's NBA main slate. Contest selection looks good. All low stakes. Good contest. We love to see that. Gonna pull up the results for I kind of want to look at the $4.20 max. I'd rather look at this one. So let's pull this up. All right, let's go over to users. I don't see. I swear that's how you spell it. Okay, hold on. I don't know what I did here. Because it doesn't make any sense to me. Let me try something real quick. Good old hard refresh. Gonna pull them back up one more time. Okay, let's get the screen back up. All right, we're going to jump back over to yesterday's main. Try this again. Okay, yeah, I was definitely looking at something different. My bad. All right, contest selection still looks fine. Don't mind this at all, right? Let's look at the mini-max this time. So this is a 7-game main slate. Let's go to users. Okay, MWBlueski. So going to go entries equal to greater than or equal to 76, which is how many he entered. Sort by sim ROI. All right, so what do we see here? 49.8 average salary, 43% sim ROIs is a good number. Highest sim ROIs are like 45% and up. So like literally right at the tail end there, like probably in the top 20, I would say. So I think their sim ROI is good. Notice, right, higher average dupes than like some of these other sets. I think if they got their average dupes like slightly lower, they could be a slightly higher on the sim ROI chart. So interesting how important duplication is becoming on these slates, right? 279 sim average score. It's like the highest here. So getting high sim average score, but getting additional duplication because of that, I would imagine here, right? Which is, we talked a little bit about this before the show, and these were some of the things that MWBlueski was seeing and being worried about, right? So let's go to a build. See, they did swap 2. Let's just start with pre-build. Again, line and filter at 4 minutes prior to lock, right? So very lean process. All right, minimum 49K. I think that's the default. No filters rules, no lineup filters. No uniques, autofill, unique rank, prize pool, high to low. Player table, no min or max exposures. Okay, so my opinion, right? This is a very like plug and play, very like strong trust SaberSim type of approach, right? I honestly think it's a good approach. I think it does make sense to be concerned about your duplication here, right? So what I would probably start with is something super minor, and it could be as simple as like filtering out like even like a really small number, like even like 5% of the highest sum owned lineups, and just start there, right? You might have to try this out like a couple times. You could try stuff out across different contests that you're playing, right? Like, hey, in contest 1, maybe the quarter jukebox, I'm going to filter out 5% of sum owned lineups. In contest 2, right? Maybe you go and enter like some dime times to do this, right? Contest 2, I'm going to filter out 10% of sum owned lineups. Contest 3, I'm going to try and apply a geomean filter for 5% of my lineups, and test a couple different things out and see which one doesn't impact your results as far as sim ROI, but does lower your average dupes, right? So I think sum ownership is probably less impactful than geomean, which is like why that's my first suggestion, is the word I was looking for. So I would do something like that. Your results are good, but I do think it makes sense to account for duplication when you're just on average higher than a lot of the other sets. So I don't want you to like go and do anything like super crazy. We're not trying to get you from like 50 average dupes down to like 10, but we're trying to get you, from 5 down to like 1, right? So I think some small changes there first are the right course of action. So try some of those things across some different contests. Play with some ownership geomean and see if you can get that down a little bit without impacting your sim ROI or without impacting your sim average score too much. All right. Good stuff there. going to be hitting our second person signed up for yesterday's NBA main slate. It's going to be a Clown from Discord. So let's get this up on the screen. What happened? All right. Just letting this load up. Almost there. All right, let's get this up. Gonna jump back to yesterday's main slate. This will be our second Thursday main slate review. Let's go to contests. Okay, so what do we see? We see good contest selection. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing here. So this all looks good. Let's choose the mini max. Okay, let's open up the lineups tab. Let's try this again. Come on. All right. Not cooperating. Gotta try this again. Sorry. Two more users to go. We'll knock these out so you guys can start building your NBA lineups for today or NHL or even college football. I think college football starts at 7 Eastern. All right. Try this again. Let's bring this up. And then we're going to click on Minimax. Why won't this work? All right, I'm not 100% sure why it doesn't want to work. We're going to try it one more time, and if not, we will move on to our next person, who is Brad. But either way, I will make sure we get a review, even if I have to record it offline and send it to the user. But we'll figure it out. All right, one more time. And let me do one more thing. See if we get lucky. Okay, bringing it up one more time. Okay, this already looks a little bit better because this lineups tab is populated. All right, clicked on the Minimax. And it loaded. Cool. Awesome. I was worried about this one. All right, 150 lineups from Clown here. Sort by sim ROI. All right, so what do we see? We see 10% positive sim ROI. We see a high average salary, 2 average dupes, which is lower than MDM Blueski, 99 uniques, 135, 105. But we do see a way lower sim average score here, right? At like 271. These are two different contests. You know, we did look at the $4.20 max last time, but just comparing the sim average score to the higher ones here, you know, a lot of these ones are like above 275. So I'm inclined to say that I think this set of lineups is just a little bit too low projected. We do see one user at 270, right? But the difference here is that they have 0 average dupes and all of their lineups are unique. So you can play a lower sim average score, but you got to guarantee that uniqueness, which is tough sometimes. So I think if we focus on playing a little bit higher sim average score lineups, that will probably just be enough by itself. So these lineups came from swap 2. I'm assuming that means that they were from build 1. So let's just go to build 1, look at some pre-slate adjustments. Okay, so I was actually wrong that the minimum default is not 49,000, it's 48,000. So this is honestly one easy way to get to higher projected lineups. Typically projected points are correlated to salary. So we noticed that Interrogator and Endum Bluesky had higher sim average scores. So try just increasing the minimum salary here, right? 48.5, 49,000. You know, we saw Endum Bluesky had 49,000. We saw Interrogator had 49.2. This could be just an easy way to adjust that. So give this guy a shot. No filters, no rules, no lineup filters, 3 uniques. Generally, this is something I like caution against, is when you're playing a larger amount of like lineups, like 217 lineups is not nothing, right? And then you start to include uniques up to 3. You're using unique rank. I would definitely be using an ROI greater than 0 filter just to make sure you're not getting negative ROI lineups in your contest. Another thing I would probably be doing here, sorting by prize pool. Just come in here and sort by prize pool. That way your biggest prize pool contests get the best lineups, especially because you're using unique rank. That in unique rank, once a lineup is used, it gets removed from the available pool. So a lineup can't be used twice. So if you have some of your lower prize pool contests down further on the list, well, then, you know, lineups that could be good for those are getting taken by smaller prize pool contests higher up. So ROI greater than 0 filter, sorting by prize pool are 2 good things that I would be doing here, or like adding. No min or max exposures that I see here. All right, cool. So yeah, I don't think we need to, like, you know, completely redo this process, like start from the ground up. I think we just need to make a couple small tweaks. So why don't we start with a minimum salary increase, an ROI greater than 0 filter, and then sorting your contest and autofill by prize pool high to low. Give those 3 things a shot. Check out your post contest sim ROIs over the weekend if you're playing, and let me know how you're doing. But I think some small changes here are actually going to go a long way. So give those a shot. All right. Good one there. Glad we were able to get to it. Last one coming up here. This one's going to be from Brad, and then I'll let you guys go so you guys can go and start your NBA processes. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Got a long one here, but plenty of people signed up, so we got to get to everybody. All right. Let's see. Okay, check. All right, Brad, who's up next, likes to use light mode. Almost blinded me here, but it's okay. All right, let's go back to main slate. Let this build load. All right, jump over to the contest tab. All right, contest selection looks good. Happy with it. Low stakes, entering less than the max and the mini max to, you know, keep their bankroll consistent, right? So good stuff there. Let's pull up the biggest prize pool one, which is the and one. All right. Go to users. All right, we got Brad here. 20 lineups. Sort. move the columns around. I'm going to reset them. Sort by sim ROI. All right. So what do we see here? So 15% sim ROI, highest in this contest are like above 90%, I would say. So how are we getting there? 49.9 salary. So plenty of salary being used. 5 average dupes, a little bit on the higher side. 8 uniques, 16 under 5, 272 sim average score. So this is kind of interesting, right? Like we saw somebody like Emdem Bluesky with like 5 average dupes, but his sim average score was like 297, right? It was like really, really high. Seeing that Brad has 5 average dupes with 272 sim average scores, like really interesting to me, to be honest, because it's like, wow, how are they getting duplicated when they're leaving salary on the table? So seems kind of weird. Could be they're just playing really high, close to like max salary lineups. I'm not 100% sure. We're going to have to go to a build and find out. Second thing here, right? Notice these lineups built 18 minutes prior to lock here. Now, I'm not sure, what news came out or things like that within this time frame, but this is a little bit bigger of a gap than we've seen with some of the other users, right? We've seen like 5 minutes, 4 minutes, right? 18 minutes, there could have been sims that run, right? So I don't know if there was or not. It's important to know that, though. So the best place to get that information is from the NBA lineup alert channel in Discord. If you're in the Discord, you can go to that channel. You can see when sims complete, and then you can see if players' projections have changed. Now, I say if players' projections are changing, then a rebuild is warranted. No projections changed in this 18-minute period, then I think it's fine to leave it. However, I think that is more the exception than the rule. I would probably, if I had to place a wager, I'd say projections probably updated. So not sure if you just didn't have time or you missed it, but I would be keeping an eye on those changes leading up to lock. Second thing I don't see, right? Don't see a late swap build, right? So there were 2 late swap windows here. I'm not saying you have to late swap, but what I am saying is that, unless no news came out again, not late swapping was probably the wrong answer. So I would be surprised if projections weren't changing and a late swap wasn't warranted, right? So those would be 2, honestly, really quick things that could help you out a ton, is trying to lean down your process so it can be run in a couple minutes as opposed to, tens of minutes. And then number 2 is making sure that you're paying attention to projection changes and late swapping when you see those, right? That's going to be massive for your results. All right, let's jump into build 1. All right. Again, I think this is another good opportunity to increase minimum salary from the default here, considering your sim average score was a little bit lower. No filters, no rules, 1 lineup filter, ROI greater than 0. This is a good one to have. Autofill, sorted by prize pool, 3 uniques, unique rank. All that looks good. Not seeing any Mintermax exposures. So my guess is like this could definitely be done in a couple minutes. I'm assuming that they just build their lineups and, probably got busy with other things and stuff like that. So I would just be keeping a little bit better eye on it, but pretty lean process. I think it can be done in a short amount of time. And I would, 1, be trying to build closer to lock. 2, making sure I'm late swapping. 3, increasing my minimum salary and going from there. So give that a shot. Let me know how it goes. And we can always circle back here in the future. Brad said, usually late swap had to work. I understand that. So, obviously I'm just looking at one slate here. I'm not looking at all your slates. I get it. I know those things happen. So those are just, hey, I'm looking at this for the first time. I don't know what you usually do. And, I gotta provide that advice just based off what I see right here. Right. So it's all good. But as long as you should be late swapping, that's great. Right. So good stuff there. All right. I think we're set here, but let me know if you have any questions. appreciate everybody tuning in. We got 45 minutes till slate lock here, so I will let you all get out of here. Our next build review show will be on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get signed up over the weekend, just drop your DK username in the office hours channel. Let me know what sport and slate you want me to review. I will add you to the list. But until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.